Hello, hello. Okay, I just hopped off a coffee chat with a dear friend of mine, and it really got my brain going as I shared something that I learned, or a perspective shift that I had on fear this past weekend after going to James Wedmore's BBD Live. And I wanted to share it with you here because I recognized so many areas of my life that I was allowing this to play out and hold me back. And James got up on the stage and he was talking about fear. And he said a lot of times we look at what we want to do in our life and we look at it through a certain context. And we play out all of these futures. So I'll share a real life example for me is we are wanting to sell our house and move. And what we are doing, I call this Chris and Lori Hardering our lives. If you don't know Chris and Lori Harder, they lost everything back in 2009. And what he did when they sold everything, they sold their house, they sold everything, they decided that they were going to be really intentional about what they did next. And so that's what my husband and I are deciding of like when Chris and Lori did this, they decided to prepay for a year's worth of rent in an apartment building they couldn't afford. And the reason that they had for doing that was to put themselves in different networks of people. And as I got thinking about the current situation that we're in, and like we don't love our neighborhood and where we live, and I'm starting to grow my business offline as much as I am online. And I was like, okay, our house one is no longer working for us. And right now, for those of you who know, like the market is just like up and down and crazy, and interest rates are high and home prices are high. Like it's just kind of bouncing all over the place. And for right now, like we don't have 2 years worth of the business income to purchase the house that we want to purchase. And so I'm like, okay, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Knowing this is not going to make any logical sense to anybody but me. And we have decided to sell our house and rent for a year. And when I first presented this idea to my husband, I was super excited about it. I knew this is like what we needed to do. He was on board. And then the fear starts to creep in, right? You start to think about that we get really excited. We feel this. So this came to me through breath work. So I felt it in my body. Like this was a yes, we needed to do this. This was our next step. And then that lovely little logical mind and the ego, they like to kick in and be like, well, but is that really the smartest idea? What if in 1 year from now, like you really can't afford that rent payment? Like all of this, right? And so then we start to create all of these futures that could be a possibility, right? All of these futures, we won't be able to afford the rent payment. We're going to have to move back in with like parents, or we're going to have to downsize, or whatever it is, right? We start to create all these different futures. Well, we are living in fear of a future that might not even happen. This was like the biggest message that I took away from James's whole speech on fear. And it really got me thinking. And I remember asking my husband, and this was even before I went to the event. I remember my husband and I went to lunch, and I looked at him and I said, what are we waiting for? We were getting real good at making all the excuses of like, well, maybe we should wait till the end of the school year. Maybe we should do this. And then I had a friend like call me out on that BS. She was like, but what if you move before the end of the school year and then your kids get to make friends? So then they'll have friends to hang out with all summer. So it's just kind of funny because there's always a rebuttal to any excuse we try to make up. But I just looked at him like, yeah, what are we waiting for? And so we decided to jump on board, and we had a guy come out and look. We need to get some baseboard up and do a few things. So he came out, he gave us a bid. The bid was better than we ever expected. And so we accepted that. So he's coming, and we've picked a date. And actually, let me look at this. So the date was almost 15 days ago when this comes out. So that's exciting. Maybe I'll have to give you an update. But yeah, it just got us really thinking about how we were living in fear of a future that hadn't even happened yet. And it's like, how can you bring yourself back to the present moment and lean into the belief that you get to bend your reality, you get to create whatever future you desire to create, and you get to make decisions from that place in this moment? Because if we're constantly living in that fear, you're going to start to like create that. That's going to start to become your reality, and you're going to start to lean into that and manifest it. And so create the future that you desire to have in this present moment. And so ways that you can do this is today when you wake up, or tomorrow, whenever you're listening to this, right? Wake up and say, if I already had the life that I desired and I was making the money that I desire to make, how would I show up today? Like, really ponder that. If you already had the life you desire, you were already making the money that you wanted today, how would you show up? I bet it would be really different than you showing up from that fear of, oh my gosh, what if I can't make this happen? What if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not doing enough? What if I'm not like pushing the business and I'm not getting it out there? And then you start to get in all this overwhelm, and then you shut down, and then you're like, hit another month from now and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not even making any progress. Like we're not going to be able to afford our house. Do you see how that starts to play out? And that future hasn't even happened, but you're going to create it by the thoughts that you're having now. So take off that lens of what if I can't make this happen? And let's put on a lens of like, what if it's already done? What if it's already done in this moment? And now you get to take action today from a place of belief, from a place of knowing that you get to create whatever reality you want, from choosing, well, if I already had this life, if I already had this money, if I already had this business that was running the way that I wanted it to, then how would I show up today? Tomorrow doesn't matter right now. The present moment does, and how you show up right now matters. And so when you baby step, I think a lot of times we get these big goals, and instead of breaking it down in all of the smaller goals, we think that we just have to do all the things and that we have to do it all right now. And that starts to create that sense of overwhelm and that sense of powerlessness, and fear creeps in, and fear starts to play into our decisions. And then we just don't take the action that we want to take because we're so overwhelmed with everything that we have to do. So I want you to chunk that back down into bite-sized pieces. So let's just say, okay, let's start. Let's do this. Let's do this in real time. Okay, I want to make $100,000 this year. Let's just say that's your goal, right? Okay, well, let's break that down. How much is that a month? Well, that's about $8,300 a month. Okay, now let's break that down even further and say, okay, what programs do I have? What business, I don't know, what business items do I have? What can I do to make this a reality? Well, let's just say, you guys, I'm really bad at math. Like, I just forced myself to do math in my head. Let me get out my calculator, not my calendar. All right, we want to make $100,000, right? We figure that's about $8,300 a month. Let me break this down for, let's just say you have a membership. I just launched a membership, the Breathwork Collective, right? Because here's a really cool thing about breathwork. Breathwork has shifted everything for me, and breathwork has helped me stay in my current reality that I desire to create. And so breathwork helps me, and it helps you bypass that logical mind and truly tap into who you desire to be, how you desire to show up. You will start to get ideas coming to you. You will start to get creativity flooding back in, all the things when you do breath work. But okay, back to our $8,300 a month. Let's just say you have a $300 product. So we're going to take that $8,300, we're going to divide it by 300, right? $8,300 divided by 300. You need to sell 27 of those a month. Do you see how, as we start, hang on, I'm going to take a little drink of my tea. My throat was like a little bit scratchy when I woke up this morning. But do you see how, when you break that down, oh, I only need to sell 27 of whatever you have. Let's just say 27 courses per month, right? Like, because my goal this year was to get 500 members. If I get 500 members in at $20 a month, I think that was my $10,000 goal. 500 times $20. Yeah, that was my $10,000 goal. Oh, I could have done that math in my head. But anyways, 500 members. I'm giving myself 12 full months to do that. And so it's like, okay, let's start with the first one. Well, I already did that, right? Let's start with the second one. Already did that. So you start to think about this in like micro steps, little baby steps. Maybe you want to start a business and earn an extra $500 a month for your family. Maybe you just want to make enough to pay for your kids' sports. Whatever it is for you, where can you start small? So, okay, if I want to get this many members into my membership, well, I've got to start making money. How do I start making money? Well, I've got to be visible. How do I get visible? Well, let's pick one social media platform, Instagram. Now I have this podcast too, right? But I started just on Instagram. So it's like, then we start to bring eyeballs in. Then we start to talk to people. One at a time. Get the momentum going. Let go of that fear of the bigger picture and the futures that you might not even create. Live in the present moment and ask yourself how you want to show up every single day. And then start to show up in that way, just one step at a time. That's it. We don't need to complicate it, right? It's simple. Simple, not easy. Because as you step into entrepreneurship, as we start to lean into creating a life we want, maybe this is just showing up how you want as a mom. It's like, okay, if my kid spills milk today, I'm not going to yell at him. Maybe this time I'm going to look at him and be like, you know what? It's okay. I'm going to help you clean it up. Right? It doesn't have to be something massive. It doesn't have to be building a business. It can be something as simple as showing up how you want as a mom. And then the next day, the same thing. Same thing, same thing, same thing. It's an intentional choice because when you step into entrepreneurship, when you start to lean in, yes, the decisions are simple, the steps are simple, but it's really hard because that's when all our shit comes up. That's when all the feelings come up. That's when all the thoughts come up. Well, I'm not good enough. Oh, I actually yelled at my kid today, and so I suck. I'm a bad mom. Like, whatever that is, how can we start to let go of that? Give yourself some grace and compassion. Live in the present moment. Say, you know what? That's okay. I made a mistake. I'm going to apologize and let's move forward. And then you keep going one step at a time, one foot in front of the other until you get where you want to go. And I will talk to you next time.